I never thought I'd be the guy posting a story like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 7 years now. We met when we were both fresh out of college, and honestly, for most of that time, I thought we had a pretty solid relationship. Yeah, we had our fights, petty stuff mostly, but I believed in us. We were planning to get married, buy a house, start a family someday. It felt stable, predictable, the kind of life I always wanted. But then everything changed about 3 months ago. I lost my job unexpectedly. Company downsizing, they said. It hit me hard. I was angry, embarrassed, and honestly pretty scared about the future. I struggled for weeks trying to find something new, but nothing panned out. Those weeks, Lisa was supposed to be supportive. Instead, she started acting weird, avoiding me when I tried to talk, snapping at me when I asked how her day was, and suddenly she was working late a lot. I thought maybe she was just stressed about money or work, but looking back now, it was almost like she was hiding something. I noticed she was more secretive on her phone, kept the screen tilted away when I was near, and sometimes I'd catch her typing late into the night. She brushed it off when I asked, said she was just talking to friends or doing some work stuff. But I knew better. I felt it in my gut. Something was off, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was happening behind my back. Then one night I was in the living room trying to distract myself from the constant job hunt when I saw her phone light up with a message notification. I normally wouldn't pry, my wife was already bitchy enough without me snooping, but that night I couldn't resist. I glanced at the screen and my heart stopped. There was a message from someone named Chris. The first line was something like, "Can't wait to see you tonight," and the reply was, "Me too. It's been so long." That's when everything clicked. My stomach clenched and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I knew instantly what it was. Lisa had been cheating on me. She'd been sneaking around, lying to my face, all while I was trying to hold it together after losing my job. I didn't know whether to feel angry, devastated, or just numb. I kept staring at that message, feeling the weight of betrayal crush me down. How long had this been going on? Was it just a one-time thing or something more? The worst part, I realized she'd been hiding this from me all along, and I had no idea. I felt like my entire world was crumbling, and I had no idea where to go from here. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and the only thing running through my head was that damn message and what it meant. I kept replaying all the little clues I'd missed, the way she dodged my questions, the late nights, the secretive texts. It all made so much sense now, but I still couldn't believe it. Lisa, my wife, the woman I trusted, was cheating on me with my own brother, Jake. Yeah, I said my own brother. That was the part that hit hardest, how deep the betrayal ran. I never in a million years thought Jake would do something like this, especially not with Lisa. We've always been close, and I protected her from a lot of trouble in the past. It's like everything I believed about family, about loyalty, was just a lie. I still remember the moment I found out, walking into the kitchen and seeing her phone on the table, unlocked with a new message from Jake. I didn't even think, I just picked it up and read. She'd been lying to my face, saying she was working late or meeting friends. And meanwhile, she was fucking my brother. It was like the ultimate slap in the face. The rage that hit me then was unlike anything I'd ever felt. I wanted to scream, to hit something, to shake her until she told me the truth. But instead, I just stood there, trembling, clutching her phone. I wanted to break something, but I knew I had to keep my composure. That night, I decided I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I needed answers. No, I needed the truth. I waited until she came home from her late shift, and I confronted her. I asked her about the messages, about the lies, about Jake. Her reaction was something else. She looked me dead in the eyes, all fake innocence and bitchy smirk, and said, "Oh, you're overreacting, Mike. It's nothing. Just a stupid flirt. You're making a big deal out of nothing. You're just insecure because you're not working." That's her typical bullshit. She always downplays everything, calls me paranoid, says I'm crazy for even thinking this. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I was done. I told her I knew about the affair, about Jake, everything. Her face twisted into this nasty sneer, and she said, "You're such a jealous idiot. It's none of your business what Jake and I do. Maybe if you weren't such a loser lately, she'd even want to be with you." That's when I saw her mask slip for a second. The venom, the pure hatred in her eyes. I realized then that I was dealing with someone who didn't care about me at all. It was like she was just using me, using our marriage to hide her affair, to keep up appearances, while she fucked around with my own brother behind my back. The emotional fallout was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly heartbroken. For a moment I wondered if I should just pack up and leave right then. But something inside me, some stubborn part that refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break, told me to stay calm. I knew I needed a plan. I couldn't just explode and make a mess, not yet. I had to think, to figure out what my next move was. But I knew one thing for sure: my marriage was over. Hell, my trust was gone, shattered completely, and I had no idea how I was going to even look at her anymore. The days that followed were like walking through a fog. I couldn't focus on anything but the betrayal. Every time I looked at Lisa, I saw a stranger, bitchy, manipulative, and utterly untrustworthy. I kept replaying her excuses, her lies about just a flirt, how she'd call me insecure and pathetic for catching her. Honestly, it made me sick. She never cared about how I felt. She just thought she could keep me on a string, play her little game, and I'd never find out. Well, I found out, and it changed everything. I needed to decide what to do. I knew I couldn't stay living under the same roof with someone who had no respect for me. I started packing some of my things, trying to keep it quiet, but I was so angry I could hardly breathe. Mostly I was angry at myself for trusting her so blindly. For so many years I believed in her, in us. And now, all I saw was a girl who had lied, cheated, and used me right under my nose. One night I finally sat her down again. I wanted answers, not just the surface stuff, but everything. I told her I knew about her affair with Jake, about how long it had been going on. I told her I'd seen the messages, the late nights, the sneaking around. Her reaction was just as I expected. She rolled her eyes, called me clingy, and spat out some bullshit about how I was just jealous because I was losing my manhood after losing my job. She told me I was overreacting, that Jake was just a friend, and that I was making a huge deal out of nothing. That's when I snapped. I told her I'd had enough of her lies, that I was going to be the punching bag for her drama anymore. I looked her dead in the eyes and said I was done pretending. I told her she needed to either come clean, admit what she did, and start fixing herself, or I'd leave her. Her face twisted into a sneer and she spat back, "Good. Leave then. You're a pathetic loser anyway. You're nothing without your job or your damn pride." That's when I realized she didn't even care about us, about me. All she cared about was saving face, keeping her little secrets hidden. I felt a mix of rage and sadness I'd never experienced before. I wanted to shout, to break something, but I kept my composure. I knew I needed to get out of there, physically and emotionally. The betrayal ran so deep, I couldn't even look at her without feeling disgusted. I called a friend, told him I needed to stay somewhere else for a while. I couldn't sleep in that house anymore, not with her in it. I packed a bag and left that night, not telling her where I was going, just knowing I needed space. That's when it hit me hardest. I'd lost my wife, my brother, my sense of security, all in the span of a few weeks. I kept thinking about everything I'd trusted, everything I'd believed in, and how it all turned to dust. But as much as it hurt, I knew this was the wake-up call I needed. I couldn't be with someone who lied and cheated behind my back. I had to rebuild myself from scratch. I told myself I wouldn't let her, or Jake, or anyone else define who I was. I'd get through this, even if it meant starting over alone. The days turned into a blur of anger, confusion, and a strange sense of relief that I finally had some clarity. I stayed away from the house, stayed away from Lisa, and tried to process everything I'd just learned and experienced. Honestly, I felt like I'd been punched repeatedly in the gut. The betrayal was one thing, but the way she lied, the way she turned everything around on me, it cut even deeper. It was like I'd been living a lie for years, and now that I knew the truth, I didn't know who I was anymore. The worst part, knowing that her affair with Jake was probably going on for months. I found some texts she'd missed deleting, and they only confirmed what I already suspected. They were intimate, dirty, full of promises and plans for secret meetups. She talked about their sex, how she liked being with him, how it made her feel alive. I'd always thought Lisa was a little bitchy, a little manipulative, but I never thought she'd go this far. that she'd betray her own family, her own vows, just for some stupid thrill. I remember sitting alone that night, staring at my phone, thinking about how I'd ended up in this nightmare. I felt numb but also furious. I was furious at her, at Jake, and most of all at myself for not seeing the signs sooner. How did I miss all those little things? How did I let her get away with this? It was like I'd been blind, and now I was paying the price for trusting someone who didn't deserve that trust. I knew I had to make a choice. Stay and try to work it out, or walk away and start fresh. The pain was overwhelming, but I realized I couldn't keep living in this toxic mess. I knew deep down I deserved better, a woman who would respect me, who wouldn't cheat, who wouldn't lie to my face. I decided I'd give her one chance to come clean, to admit everything, and then I'd walk away for good if she didn't. But I also knew that if she denied even once, that was it. No second chances. So I called her again. This time I laid it out straight. No more bullshit, no more excuses. I told her I knew everything, the affair, the texts, the late nights. I told her I was done being her backup, her fool, her pawn. I gave her a chance to tell me the truth, to be honest for once. Her reaction: she just sneered, looked at me with complete disdain, and said, "Whatever, Mike. You're too stupid to see what's good for you anyway." That was the moment I knew she was gone, completely, utterly gone. I felt a strange mix of relief and heartbreak. I was finally free from her lies, but I was also devastated. I'd lost my wife, my brother, and my sense of stability all at once. As I packed up my things that night, I promised myself that I wouldn't let this destroy me. I'd rebuild. I'd find someone who actually cared about me, who respected me. It was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do, walking away from everything I thought I knew, but I knew I had no choice. I couldn't stay with someone who lied and cheated, not anymore. The aftermath of leaving was a whirlwind. I stayed with a buddy for a few weeks, trying to gather my thoughts and piece myself back together. Honestly, I felt like a shell of the man I used to be. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sneer, her lies, the way she betrayed me with Jake. It was like a punch in the stomach every time. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so trusting. And the worst part, the feeling of utter rejection, realizing she didn't love me, not really. She just wanted to use me, to keep her secret life hidden until it all exploded. I knew I had to face the reality that I'd lost a lot, not just my wife but also my brother. That betrayal cut deep. My brother, my blood, the person I thought I could trust most in this world, had gone behind my back, slept with my wife, and made a mockery of everything we stood for. Every time I thought about it, rage bubbled up again. How could he do that? How could they both lie to my face, pretend everything was fine? I started seeing a therapist. It helped, at least a little. Just talking through everything, even if I wasn't ready to forgive or forget, gave me some clarity. I realized that holding onto anger wasn't going to do me any favors. I had to accept what happened and move forward. But I also knew I'd never look at either of them the same way again. The trust was gone, completely shattered. They turned my life into a complete mess, and honestly, I didn't know if I'd ever be able to forgive either of them, or even myself, for not seeing what was happening right under my nose. One day, I finally made a decision. I'd confront Jake. I didn't want to leave things hanging, and I knew I needed closure. I called him up, told him I wanted to meet, just the two of us. When we finally sat down, I didn't hold back. I told him exactly how I felt: betrayed, furious, broken. I couldn't understand how he could do this to me, to his own brother. Jake tried to justify it, said she was hot, said she was just a girl who liked a little excitement. But to me, that just sounded like a weak excuse. I told him if he ever so much as looked at her again, I'd make sure he regretted it. That confrontation didn't fix everything, but it gave me some sense of closure. I realized I couldn't keep carrying this weight forever. I had to move on, even if that meant starting over from scratch. I started focusing on myself, on rebuilding my life, even if it was painfully slow. I took up some new hobbies, reconnected with old friends, and gradually tried to find my footing again. The pain still lingered, but I refused to let it define me. It was a hard lesson. Trust can be fragile, people can betray you when you least expect it, and sometimes the biggest lies come from the people you love the most. But I knew one thing for sure: I was done being a victim. From now on, I was going to rebuild my life on my own terms. Looking back now, I realized that the whole experience was a brutal wake-up call. It's one thing to suspect someone is cheating, but it's another entirely to discover how deep the betrayal really goes. I spent so many sleepless nights feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach, questioning everything I thought I knew about love, family, and loyalty. And honestly, I still wrestle with it. But I also learned something essential. I am stronger than I thought. I survived the worst betrayal of my life, and I've come out the other side still standing. I've started to rebuild my life piece by piece. I'm not as angry as I was at first, though the scars remain. I've realized that some people are just toxic, and the best thing you can do is cut them out of your life and move forward. I see now that trust is fragile, something that needs to be earned, not blindly given, and that betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to define your future. I've learned to value myself more, to see my worth beyond what others think of me, and to never let anyone make me feel small again. Honestly, if I could give any advice to someone in my shoes, it would be this. Trust is a gift, but it's also a risk. People will let you down, sometimes in the worst ways possible, but you have to hold on to your dignity, your boundaries, and your self-respect. How you handle the pain, the anger, and the heartbreak will shape your future. Don't let betrayal turn you into someone bitter or broken. Use it as a lesson, a stepping stone. Because life moves on, even when it feels like everything's falling apart. I've come to terms with the fact that I might never fully understand why she did it or how my brother could betray our family like that. But I know this, I will never trust her again. I will never trust Jake. And I will never let the pain of the past prevent me from finding happiness in the future. I'm taking my time, healing, and focusing on myself. That's what matters now. So to anyone reading this who's going through something similar, know that you're not alone. It hurts like hell, but it gets better. Trust your instincts. Protect your heart and don't be afraid to walk away from the toxicity. You deserve honesty, respect, and genuine love. I may have lost a lot, but I've gained something even more valuable. Hope that someday I'll find real happiness again. And I will.